Welcome to what Rich Froning referred to as officially the most boring workout I've done in my CrossFit career. Good morning. Headed to the gym to do our RX Plus competitors program there. And it is the week of the age group qualifier and the teams qualifier. And I think we're going to be doing one of the age group qualifier workouts as our workout today. I am not in the age group. I did the individuals. I'm 29, so too young for the age groups, or too old for the teens and too young for the masters. So I'm not doing all the workouts, but I am going to have a video documenting all of the masters. That'll be coming out soon, but this might be my experience doing just one of the age group qualifier workouts. So let's head to the gym. Welcome back to another voiceover. So I am about to do age group online qualifier test number 3, and we are underway, and the test is up on your screen. If you're not familiar with it, it is 4-time, 50 shuttle runs, 7 rope climbs, 25 bench presses, 7 rope climbs, and 50 shuttle runs. So that is a lot of running. By the end of the entire workout, so if you get through the full thing, you do nearly a mile of running, because each of those 50 shuttle runs is 50 feet, so 25 feet each direction. And for me, I didn't have a judge for this because I am not an age group athlete, so I didn't need a judge. We're just kind of doing this for fun in our RX Plus competitors class. So no judges for most of us that didn't have to do a qualifier, because that's a lot of people to organize. So I had to count myself. So I had a whiteboard and I counted each time I ran, and I didn't count to 50, I counted to 100. And I wiped my whiteboard every 10 reps, and those 10 reps were counting up to 100, not up to 50. For me, not counting each time my hand touches just gives me time to get confused and forget what number I am on. So it's easier for me to think every time my hand touches the ground, count 1, 2, 3, 4. So basically, if you do that, if you count every time your hand touches the floor, then you're going to just double whatever the shuttle runs are. So if it was 10, like it was in the open, you're counting to 20. So for this, counting to 100 for me. So this was a lot of back and forth. I didn't really feel any issues with my back or anything from all the bending during this first set, a little bit in the second set, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And also the counting kind of kept me mentally focused, where if I had a judge, I probably wouldn't count and just wait to hear the numbers when they said them. Like if they counted every 10, I would just wait for that. And I think I would have gotten more bored during the workout. Oh, speaking of that, also, welcome to what Rich Froning referred to as officially the most boring workout I've done in my CrossFit career. And I didn't quite think it was as boring as he did, but I thought it was a really interesting tweet. Also, I didn't know Rich Froning tweets. I'm not a big Twitter user. I use it from time to time. I mostly use it for work stuff because I'm a reporter, so looking for story ideas in the area, and some sports because I enjoy basketball and football, but I don't usually go on there to check out what CrossFitters are saying. Maybe I should, because this was definitely an interesting tweet. Also, someone responded with saying, "And you did a marathon row." He said, well, half marathon. The teams, that was teams that year. He was teams that year that they did the marathon row. The marathon row was in 2018 for the individuals, so he actually didn't do that specific workout that I believe the person who tweeted at him was insinuating. But I could see how he would think this is more boring than someone like me. Again, like I just said, I was counting because I didn't have a judge. If I did have a judge, I think I would have gotten more bored because I would have trusted the judge to count and I would have just tried to execute. But just the monotonous going back and forth would have gotten boring. The fact that I had to count each time and had to remember where I was made it a little bit more intriguing, a little bit more interesting, added some focus. So I could see how it would get more boring if you had a judge. Also, this workout for someone of Rich Froning's caliber is probably also more boring. Like for a lot of more average CrossFitters, 7 rope climbs consecutively is tough. Like you have to be strategic when attacking that, making sure you're jumping up quickly, but not too quickly where you're gonna fail. For someone of Rich Froning's caliber, like he's not gonna fail 7 consecutive rope climbs, not at this point in his career. So it's a lot less of a test. Also, the 185 bench press for him is not the same as it is for a lot of your more average athletes. So yeah, just running back and forth, a moderate to easy number of rope climbs for Rich Froning, and then just some bench pressing, which will lower your heart rate because you're laying on your back, then some more rope climbs and you run again. I could totally see how someone of Rich Froning's abilities would be bored. But if you're a more average CrossFitter, I don't think it's quite as boring as he suggests, because for a lot of people, that bench press weight is gonna be kind of tough. And if you're counting yourself on these shuttle runs, it's a totally different game. It's a different head game. And I am still not very good at these. Like running in a way that's conducive for moving quickly when you're stopping so much is just not something I'm super skilled at this point. I didn't play a sport where we did shuttle sprints. I didn't play a sport period growing up. So I feel a little bit underprepared for this movement, but glad to be doing it now because the only way to get better at it is to keep doing it. But this is also a much slower way to run a half mile than it would be just to go outside and run a half mile. But you can't do that in the open because not everyone has the same conditions to run in, especially when you just even think about the fact that some places in the world it's snowing, in other places it's sunny and 80 degrees, in other places it's 100 degrees and you're dying outside. So this is a cool way to integrate running into the online qualifiers and make it as consistent as you can for everybody. So I have heard some people say, like, why not just go outside and run? I totally understand why they're not doing that and they have us doing this. And I think this is a much smarter way for us to do running in this qualifier. So I'm about to start there is my first rope climb. You can see me in the distance right now. I actually believe at some point I switch ropes, and I'll explain why I do that. But these rope climbs, I mean, you're not too bad going into them. Yeah, your heart rate's a little bit elevated from the running, but you've done nothing that has taxed your grip or taxed your arms. So you have, something to give on these rope climbs. You can definitely chip away at them and definitely go faster on this first set than the second one because you are about to get some arm fatigue after the rope climbs once you go to the bench press. So where I am, unfortunately, is right next to somebody who is actually doing the qualifier. I didn't know the person. They were dropping in from another gym to use our space and the distance that we have and the ropes that we have. So happy they got to use it. But where they set up their camera was literally right next to where that rope was that I'm using. And I was blocking her camera. There's really nothing I could do because I spoke to the coach and they're like, just do what you want to do. Just do what you got to do. And I don't want her to get her video invalidated because of me. So I was walking away in between reps just to not be standing in front of her camera while I, wait to jump up again. So eventually when another rope opens up elsewhere, I do switch ropes just to try to make it easiest for this woman to have a good video. So I was just trying to be nice. So here I am, I'm switching ropes. This rope is not as great for my video, but again, I'm not in the age groups. I don't have a judge. I'm just doing this for fun. So jumping up on this rope, I don't know if you can see me, I'm in the orange sports bra if you haven't figured that out yet. But I'm in the orange sports bra, and now I am on the top right of your screen, kind of behind the bench. Again, this video is just for fun and for YouTube and to hang out and talk to you guys about the workout. It's not for any sort of qualifier, so is it a great shot or ideal? Definitely not, but it works for what we are doing right now. So you can see me getting up there. These are 15-foot ropes. We have a line at the top to show where you have to touch before coming down. And just 7 is a lot. It's a number that you do have to think about. You can't just rush into it. But it's not a huge number where you start to fail and fatigue, at least not for me. Like I had to rest in between the reps, but I never got up there and felt like, oh, I might not make it. Like when I did the individual qualifier at the end of the final workout, there were 9 rope climbs, and near the end of those, that actually got a little bit scary. This one, not so much. So now I'm coming over my bench to start my 25 bench presses, and the weight is 125 for women, 185 for men for most of the age groups. I chose to do 95, so that was the weight for the 16 to 17 year olds, and I believe some of the older masters. The reason I did that versus the actual weight is, well, right now I'm tying my shoe. This was, some added rest time, shoe time. But the reason I chose 95 over the 125 is I believe 125 is my max. Maybe it's 128, but something in that range is my max bench press. So could I have possibly gotten 125 in the workout if I was actually an age group athlete? Yeah, I think there is a chance I could have, because I haven't tested my 1 rep max bench press in probably a year, probably since last year's individual qualifiers, quarterfinals, when there was that bench press for weight in one of the workouts. So it's been a very long time since I tested my bench press. So there is a chance I could have bench pressed 125. Was I gonna bench press 125 for 25 reps? Not very likely. And because we didn't have spotters, just because there was lack of people in the gym, it didn't really make sense to go for a weight that was risky. Also, I wanted to give you an idea of how this workout felt, and I wouldn't be able to do that as well if I only was doing half the workout. So in between reps, shaking out my arms, I spoke to someone else who did this workout, a man with the men's RX weight, and he said the same thing, like take the time to shake out your arms, because failing a rep is more costly than waiting a couple extra seconds. And you just don't want to fail a bench press, because it gets easy to keep failing after that and just get in your head about it. So I even stood up and walked it off like you just saw there, just kind of shook out my arms. He said he did the same thing, and he finished this workout, I believe, in just over 20 minutes. So you can have a good score and still take some breaks on this bench press to make sure you're not going to be dropping the bar on yourself, and to make sure your reps are going to be successful. Because I think sometimes having successful reps can lead to a better workout. That might sound obvious, but pushing yourself to the point that you fail, you're likely to continue to fail. And there are times to push yourself to failure and realize how many reps you really can do before you're actually going to fail. A qualifier workout is probably not that time. You want to have a better game plan that's not going to lead to you staring at the bar. So do reps that you know you can stick with. I was doing some 2s and 3s, and if you have to do singles, that's fine too. And just chip away, because I just feel like that's a smarter move than trying to knock out a ton, too many early, even if you don't fail, but going to nearly failure and then having to rest way too long. Now, someone like Rich Froning, who found this workout boring, probably is pretty proficient at the 185-pound barbell and was able to knock it out pretty quickly, and while knocking it out, lowered his heart rate, and I could see how that would become boring. For those of us that, are not as strong of a bench presser as someone like him, I think it requires a little bit more strategy and a little bit more tactfulness when you're approaching the workout. So here I am going back to that rope climb. The closest rope to where I was, the one I was using at the end of the last round of rope climbs, is occupied right now. So I went back to the rope that I was using initially, because that rope that's to the right of me is the one that was being used by the athlete who is doing this for a qualifier. So I didn't want to touch that rope because, she might need it any moment. But again, I looked over and literally my whole body is just covering her camera, and she is over bench pressing, and I don't want them not to be able to see her reps. So I tried to, again, walk away when I didn't need to be in front of the rope, and now that I just saw someone leave the farther away rope, I moved over to that one to try not to block this woman's shot. Because the age group athletes who are actually doing the qualifier are the ones who, most deserve to have the equipment they need and to have, their video set up in the way that it needs to be to have a successful workout and have their scores validated. So again, chipping away at these rope climbs, and I have another word of advice for these rope climbs. Count them correctly, because I'm pretty sure I do 8 reps here, not 7. Maybe even 9, I think 8. Too many. I did too many reps. I was a little unsure of where I was and what rep I was on, and I'm pretty sure I do 1 extra rep. So, just, that's one of the benefits of having a judge for these kind of workouts. I didn't have one for this one. And I figured I'd rather do 1 extra than do 1 less. Although I will say, your arms are definitely more fatigued now after having done all the other rope climbs and doing the bench press, but my grip didn't feel particularly taxed. Like overall, I did feel more tired on it. I felt more fatigued, but I didn't feel like my hands were slipping or about to open up because my grip hurt. So take that for what it is if you're going to give this workout a try, or if you're an age group athlete who still needs to do this. That is what I would tell you. Your grip doesn't hurt as bad as you might think it would, especially if you break up those bench presses. Now, if you do the 25 in very few sets, maybe it's a different experience. But everyone I spoke to said that the rope climbs weren't as taxed by the bench press as I thought they would be. So, good news, maybe? Again, just chipping away at these too many rope climbs. But overall, I did think this was a fun workout. It gave you an opportunity to get cardiovascular with that running, to use a skill. Rope climbing is definitely a skill, especially doing it proficiently and coming down proficiently and not having time under tension that isn't needed. So that is a high skill movement. And then having bench press, which is, a strength movement, but also a movement we don't see as much of, which I think is sometimes fun to implement. I mean, my gym doesn't do very many bench presses within workouts. We do them sometimes as strength, but not very often within workouts. And maybe after this and seeing it in an online qualifier, maybe it's something more gyms will be implementing into their training. Also, I wonder if after seeing the shuttle runs in the open division this year, if we're going to see more shuttle runs making their way into CrossFit classes. We did them occasionally, but not nearly as much as I think we would have if people really thought they were going to end up being in the open for all open athletes. I think I'm getting ready for the rope climb, which I don't think I need to do, but no, where am I? I have lost, oh yep, I see myself now. I lost myself. I was getting chalk. There I am, back easily viewable. But I do think this is where I'm starting to do rope climbs that I don't actually need to do. But again, I'd rather do too many than not do enough. This workout, you do have to pace yourself, but I wouldn't overly pace. I heard someone say to really pace the first run. That was it. They told us before I did this workout. And I don't think you need to overly pace the first run. You don't want to go out in a full sprint for those first shuttle runs, but I wouldn't walk them. I am doing too many rope climbs. I'm pretty positive. I tried counting it and got 2 different numbers both times I counted it, but this is why someone else needs to be in charge of my counting, is what I've learned. And this is also why I count each
run as opposed to just counting counting the run on one end, because counting on both ends gives me less time to forget. See, there's a long time in between each of those rope climbs, and there's a lot of time to start thinking and have your brain think about other things, like how much you hurt and stuff. And when your brain starts to go to other places, or even just goes blank, then you just lose the number you're on. Where when I'm counting during this, 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 100, I'm counting frequently enough that there's not enough time for my brain just to stop thinking, or just to go blank, which can be beneficial, just blanking out your brain for a qualifier when you have a judge. When you don't have a judge, you can't just black out. And I think I blacked out on those rope climbs and just kept going forever. So chipping away at these shuttle runs now, again, like I said, counting every time I touch the floor. And there was a part of this that started to get a little bit challenging. Not necessarily boring, but I'm like, oh God, am I still running back and forth? Am I still doing this really? But near the end, I did try to kick it into gear, but near the end, last, 10, 20 distances, lengths. So this is still in the part where I'm like, oh, am I still running? I just got to keep running. But I also think that counting to 100 and marking off every 10 in the 100 feels like an accomplishment. Like when the numbers go up faster, they're bigger, it just feels like you're getting somewhere more quickly. So for me, I did that. Also, while we're in these shuttle runs, while we have a little bit of time before I finish the workout, I did want to mention what we did. This is our RX Plus competitors class. We did do some stuff before we did this workout here, this age group qualifier. We did a skill EMOM, and it was 3 rounds, alternating every minute on the minute for 9 rounds. And it was 2 to 4 25-foot handstand walks, 6 to 8 parallel shoot-throughs with 3-second pause in the L-sit, and 4 to 5 bear complexes at 75 pounds for women, 115 pounds for men. So this isn't the only thing we did today. We did other things as well, and definitely didn't tax this too much because this is very different than those things there. But I did think this was a good skill EMOM if you're ever looking for one. It's got some challenging things in it. Those parallel shoot-throughs with a 3-second pause in the L-sit, hard. Like the first 1 or 2, you're like, oh, I can do these. 6, 8, gets harder. The bear complex, fine. It was light. It was light enough that you kept it moving and was fine. Handstand walk is something I struggle a little bit with, but not too bad. The thing that is sneaky bad are those parallel shoot-throughs with the 3-second pause in the L-sit. So back to this workout that you're watching right now. Still chipping away on this run and moving through as best as I could. I think about where we are now is where I started to feel my lower back. Like I've heard some people say their lower back blows up on the shuttle runs because of all the bending and hinging. I don't really notice it. Like I haven't noticed it much. When I did the open workout, I actually did that one twice and didn't have any issues with my back blowing up or feeling sore or stiff. But this, I believe, is more reps than that workout was. And I started to feel it here a little bit, but only near the very end. Just as I was bending over, I started to be like, oh, my back feels a little bit like it's lit up here from all this hinging and bending. But I'm also getting towards the end. And once you're getting towards the end, you just kind of want to finish, So I didn't really slow down too much from it. But if that's something you notice you have earlier on, you might want to try to manage it a little bit better. And one way to help with that could be making sure you're switching which side you're bending down on each time, so you're not aggravating only one side of your body. So another athlete who thought about that beforehand and did it earlier on said that he also counted to 100. So he faced one way and turned one way for the first 50 or 25 shuttle runs, however you want to look at it. And then the second 25 or 50, however you want to look at it, he faced the other way. So that's a way to do it if you want to mitigate that, if that's an issue you have, if your lower back sort of blowing up and getting tight on the hinging in the shuttle runs. But for me, it doesn't tend to be a huge issue, probably because I have a lot of mobility in my back until the very end of this workout. And at that point, like maybe I'm feeling it now, but I'm like, I'm getting finished, getting towards the end. So just got to keep moving and grooving through this and getting as many reps as I can. The time cap on this workout, if you didn't know, is 30 minutes. So it is a long one. Even if you can't get through the whole thing and you don't finish it, you're going to be working for at least 30 minutes if you choose to do it with the time cap that we were given by the age group qualifier. Guess you could do this workout with a little bit of a tighter time cap if you wanted to do it, if you wanted to make sure you didn't have to do it for as long, I don't know. But 30 minutes is a long time cap. It's a lot of time to get this work done. And as long as the bench press is within your reach, within your capabilities, then you can certainly finish this workout. And I am starting to pick up my run a little bit because I know that I'm getting towards the end. And I believe I'm in my last 10 or 5, however you want to look at it, shuttle sprints. So just trying to finish as soon as I can and be done with the running, especially because I'm starting to feel my back. And once I start to feel my back, I'm like, let's get this done so I don't have to bend over like this anymore. But I did say I didn't think this was as boring as Rich Froning thought it was. I thought it had some strategy involved, and if you're not as good at these things as someone of his ability, then there's a little bit more thought that needs to go into it too. So let's say I finished about like 25, 29. So pretty good workout, plenty of time within the time cap, and I actually recommend doing this one if you have the opportunity to do it. I kind of thought it was fun. But if you want this to Rich Froning, I totally get that too. Not offended. Moves a little bit farther away from class because it's very loud over there. I think I finished that in like 25, 30 something. The time will be on the screen, so you'll see it. But it was a lot of going back and forth. I think Rich Froning tweeted out or Instagrammed out something about how like this was the most boring workout he's ever done. And I actually didn't find it super boring, but I was counting. I didn't have a judge. So I had to be the one to count each of the reps. And I think that makes a difference because then your brain is sort of working in a different way. In addition to like trying to keep your body going, you're also thinking about what number you're on. So I counted each rep, like instead of counting 50 shuttle runs, I counted 100. It's easier for me to remember to count each time I touch versus every other time I touch. So that's what I did. I scaled the weight. I think you've heard this already on the part before this, but I scaled the weight on the bench press. So I can't exactly say what it felt like, but it felt a good like cardio piece with some high skill movements in between a heavy bench press. Not really a skill, but it requires a lot of proficiency in the bench press and then a high skill movement in the rope climb. So it felt grindy, but I don't know, I kind of liked it. I didn't hate it as much as some other people did. I like to just move, and I've been doing more weightlifting recently to get stronger, so I haven't been just like grinding for long periods of time over the last week and a half, 2 weeks, so it's kind of nice to do that. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe. I'm going to do a video on the masters actually doing these workouts, so stay tuned for that, and I'll see you next one.